Oak Bay Resources and Energy presents BizSense.
Good evening and welcome to BizSense. I am Stevie B and we'll be focusing tonight on the World Economic Forum in Davos. These are the headlines that we are following at this hour. It's all systems go for South Africa's delegation in Davos to lure investors back to this country. In an exclusive interview with ANN7, Trade and Ministry Minister Rob Davies assures there are potential investors who are still keen to do business with this country. All right, prices of fresh produce have doubled in the past 4 months due to the unproduction and consequently reduced supply. A survey reveals that a kilogram of onions in South Africa costs an average of 13 Rand 80, while potatoes average at 14 Rand 40. Your hot chips are going to be going up, you better believe it. And of course, it is Thursday, so it's time to chat with the business legend of the week, an international acclaimed artist who has over 30 years of experience in an expert and artistic and creative genre. Stay tuned as we talk to this legend. And now it's time for us to look at that big story of the day. Trade and Industry Minister Rob Davies says it's all systems go for the South Africa's delegation in Davos to lure investors to this country. The minister was speaking on the sidelines of a 4-day World Economic currently underway in Switzerland. His comment also comes at a time when investor sentiments are at a low. ANN7 reporter Lerato Motsa has more.
Trade and Industry Minister Rob Davies says even though South Africa faces a new onslaught in disturbances of the global economy, the country still has its positives. He highlights that the infrastructure program, renewable energies independent power producer program, and the automotive production development program are some of the positives which could rescue South Africa.
South Africa, we're in a category of countries which includes Canada, includes Australia, includes Brazil, includes Russia, many other countries on the African continent who are producers and exporters of primary mineral commodities. And we've got a big shock that's arisen from that. But we do have some positives going for us in that category of countries. The Oxford Business Group, last week they said that we were quite well placed within that group of countries.
Minister Davies believes South Africa's economy has its strengths. He says there is a need to build on those and the shocks are still to confront the country. He has assured that there are potential investors who are keen to do business with South Africa.
Many of us as ministers were here. We meet with bilateral counterparts, investors of one sort or another. And I know of investors that I've been meeting over the last few days who are interested in coming to South Africa for completely new operations in manufacturing, as well as others who are looking at their existing businesses and how they can expand them as well as make them more competitive. And they are actually having a good experience in South Africa. A number of South African plants are winning awards in the company competitions for productivity, competitiveness, and so on.
The minister says whilst Davos has a series of events, the country's delegation will learn what needs to be done to prepare for a future where the focus will be on ensuring that people have the right skills, selling propositions, and coming to terms with some of the social inequalities. Lerato Motsa, ANN7 Business Desk.
All right, and now we have on the line Clive Ramitabeela-Smith joining us live from Durban. Clive, good evening to you.
Hey, how you doing, Stevie?
Hello, Clive. Clive, we're actually going to ask you on Davos, so I want to have a quick roundup of the market. Don't go into too much detail, but it was another bad day, am I correct?
It was an absolutely bad day. It was terrible. We're down by about a 0.25%. And it all has to do with the fact that we saw more money leave South African shores. And we've seen this throughout the entire week as well. So it was not a surprise. The rand did slightly strengthen, Stevie, I must be honest with you.
Right.
But nothing really to write home about.
All right, we'll leave it right there. Clive, please stay with us because we're going to be taking you a little bit later. All right, we got Minister Jeff Radebe, and we're honoured to have him. Mr. Minister, thank you so much for being with us on BizSense. Good evening. And of course, Minister in the Presidency. How are you?
I'm very well, and good evening to you and all your viewers of ANN7. I'm happy to be talking to you this evening.
Excellent. You could get a job here with that introduction. Mr. Minister, what is the sentiment at the moment like where you are?
Well, the sentiments, broadly speaking, as far as South Africans are concerned, it's a little bit positive in the sense that there's a very keen interest of many investors to come to South Africa because they know that our country is very resilient in spite of the global negative outlook in terms of the economy. But at the same time, there are many challenges that the world is facing, including South Africa, because we are not insulated from what is happening around the world. Since 2008, as you know, during the financial crisis, we have been affected as a country. So we need to take that into consideration as we are going forward. But as Team SA, we are very resolute that we're speaking with one voice, that South Africa needs investments so that we can be able to attain our objectives that are articulated in our National Development Plan, our Vision 2030, which augurs very well for people who want to invest in the South African economy.
Mr. Minister, I hear you say that there are global problems, but wouldn't it also be fair to say that we have our particular problems at the moment? We have the drought, we have low growth, we have a serious unemployment problem as well, and we have a situation where we're probably going to see interest rates rising. Against that backdrop, how do you try to persuade people to invest here?
Well, we have a plan, as I've indicated, the National Development Plan, our Vision 2030, which has been supported by the majority of South African people. Last year in January, during the State of the Nation address, our president outlined the 9-point plan that is our program of action at the moment. I think the important thing is for us to implement those programs. There are many initiatives that we have in our country, including the oceans economy, which is a very good potential to put our country into a new economic trajectory. So all these things in combination with the private sector and other civil society and organized labor, we can be able to weather the storms that we are seeing in the horizons.
We are speaking to the Minister in the Presidency, Minister Jeff Radebe. Mr. Minister, the world has a problem, a big division, a schism between rich and poor that seems to be growing all the time. Do you think that is going to come up at the World Economic Forum?
Definitely. I will recall that in the last session of the World Economic Forum here in Davos in January 2015, there was the theme of that session was the gap between the rich and the poor. And there's a recent report by Oxfam that indicates that 1% of the world's population are in fact controlling the majority of the bulk of the wealth in our country, which means that this gap is actually increasing. Now with this fourth industrial revolution, we need to pause and ponder so that when this industrial revolution is proceeding, we should not leave our people behind. That's why the issue of education, upskilling our workforce is of cardinal importance if we are not going to be left behind in this fourth industrial revolution.
We've also got not only the Minister with us, we've got Clive Ramitabela. Clive, I'd like you to come in here. We have the Minister Jeff Radebe with us. Clive, what do you think the big challenges are for South Africa at the couple of days at Davos?
Good evening to you, Minister. thank you very much for the platform as well. Let me just explain for the African continent the fact that the World Bank recently just revised all the basically the global economic growth, which is quite a concern, obviously, because part of the strategy going into the last 5 years was that Africa will play a vital role in stimulating economies across the world. And we have done quite significantly well. I think the realities that we are going through now, Stevie, is a cyclical period of tough times. Economies are all very much strained by what's happening globally. And the end of the Chinese hike, or the robust economy of the Chinese people, has come to a halt. And that sort of slowed down with every coming era of the emerging markets. And that's what's created this drastic slowdown across the world. And South Africa, as the minister just indicated, is no different. And we are feeling the pinch of the slowdown of the economy across the world. So it means that we're globalized, Stevie. It's a sign that we are part and parcel of the world economy.
All right, let's go back to the Minister. Minister, China, of course, a major factor now, the second biggest economy in the world. We saw a slowdown in their growth forecast for 2016. If I'm not mistaken, it was 6.5%, which is the lowest it's been in around 7 years. How important is China, not only to the world, but to our economy, Mr. Minister?
Well, China is one of our strategic partners. You'll recall that in December 2014, our President Jacob Zuma and President Xi Jinping, they signed a strategic comprehensive partnership between China and South Africa. So the slowdown of the economy in China will definitely affect us. You recall that also in terms of the reports that the decline in the economic growth in China is the biggest since about 1990, indicating that we're going to be affected by it. But the good news is, too, that during the FOCAC meeting that took place about more than 2 months ago in Johannesburg, President Xi Jinping not only committed more than $90 billion to the South African economy, but almost 800 billion rands for investment in the whole of the African continent. So therefore, in spite of this negative outlook, but our infrastructure investment program in South Africa, in the region, and in Africa must be proceeded with, so that when the turnaround comes, we should be found with our infrastructure very solid, but most definitely will be affected by the slowdown in China.
Clive, are you there still? Let's get Clive. Clive,
I'm still here.
The beginning to 2016 has seen nearly a double-digit loss in some of the world's stock markets. Has this got a lot to do with the slowdown that the minister has been talking about?
It does have a significant contribution to it, but there are other fundamental elements as well that need to be looked at, Stevie, and these also include the effect of quantitative easing and the fact that the decision of the United States Federal Reserve Bank to actually decide to hike rates. Was it done too soon? Did they anticipate that the markets will respond in the way that they did? So despite all the preparations that went into it, it's been very, very difficult to keep a solid base for them to continue to grow. And that's why it's difficult. What we're seeing is a response of the global markets with regards to not just the Federal Reserve Bank decision to hike the rates, but what it has caused in terms of the Eurozone, including China, for example, even countries like Greece and the likes of the Indonesian markets, the emerging markets, still feeling the pinch to this day. So I think it's a cyclical period, and it will, at some point, come to an end.
Mr. Minister, if we could just take your time for about 3 minutes, and then we'll let you go. The climate you did describe to us, the whole world economy at the moment, of course, is looking to America and to China to see what sort of growth there is. How important are these super economies to the rest of the world?
Well, as I've indicated, we're not insulated from the global economy.
Right.
We're actually intertwined. So the progress that is being made in other parts of the world will have a positive impact in our country. But as a resource-based economy, in particular South Africa, because without mining, South Africa would not be what it is today. So the downturn in commodity prices also affects us, as we can see in the platinum and gold. Many of our top companies in platinum are either loss-making or breaking even, which affects us. But the positive side of it is that with the depreciation of the rand, if we can be able to increase our exports, especially into Africa, we can be able to mitigate that negative sentiment that we see around the globe.
Mr. Minister, I suppose there are things that are beyond our control. One of them is the drought. Unfortunately, we can only pray to the Lord for that. There's no mechanism that we can do to get rid of the drought. The rand is in the hand of the markets. We can't really do much about the rand. But things like unemployment, we can do things about. Things like growth, we can.
I was just highlighting the point that part of the positive that we can see, we can extract out of the depreciation of the rand. If we can increase our tourism potential, we can be able to attract a lot of tourists to South Africa who will be actually seeing a heaven on earth because of their euros, their pounds, and their dollars. So there's also a very good light at the end of the tunnel.
Lastly, Mr. Minister, what do you do in your spare time? Do you get any spare time to go shopping or to go around that beautiful town, or is there no spare time for you?
No, Davos is very cold, so we're indoors discussing with our colleagues around the globe, but more particularly to encourage investors to come to South Africa. 3 days ago, our president established a committee which is chairing Invest in South Africa with a one-stop shop to ensure that we stop all this bureaucracy that prevent investors from investing in our country. So we call upon all South Africans to join hands in supporting Team SA Invest in South Africa with this one-stop shop that is going to be very conducive in attracting investment into our domestic economy.
Excellent. We'd like to thank the Minister for his time and giving up 10 minutes of his valuable time. Mr. Minister, thank you very much. And also to our man there, Mr. Clive Ramitabela from Clivela. Clive, as always, thanks, my man.
Thank you very much.
All right, great. All right, great. Interesting there. Thank you so much to the Minister. Now, because it is Thursday, we look at legends. If you believe you're a legend, get hold of us. We had a great business legend coming up.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Zintle Kumalo, and this is Business on ANN7. Every Thursday, we do a feature on legends. We feature people who've done well in different industries. And today we talk to the internationally acclaimed Antonia Agetua. Thank you so much, Ma. Thank you so much for joining us. We welcome you in South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Cynthia.
Thank you. Can you just tell us more about yourself? Who is Antonia Agetua?
Antonia Obiageli Agetua is just a humble woman. I started my primary education in northern Nigeria, St. Anne's Primary Boarding School. From there, I proceeded to Ahmad Bello University in Zaria, where I obtained my degree in fine art, actually sculpture and painting, mosaic and wall decoration. Then from there, I proceeded to Nigerian television. I started my career there in 1983. I started my career as a set designer. From set designer, I went in to build costumes. Since I'm a sculptor, so I started building costumes for animal programs. From there, I went to do TV and film makeup, and then went back to the television college as a lecturer to lecture in TV makeup and costume. Then from there, it's just been, business.
So obviously you've done so many things, more especially in the art and fashion and beauty industry. I just want you to take us back to where it all started. What motivated you to choose art, to choose to study art in university?
Well, to be honest, I just think it's a God-given talent, because even in my primary school and my secondary school, I did not do art at all. We were not taught, but I knew I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be an artist who would be painting in my house overlooking the sea, you know, dreams. So I insisted I wanted to do art for A-level and then university. But somehow, you know, they thought it was going to be impossible. But my father had been collecting all the things I had been doing from when I was a baby, my paintings, my things. It was based on that portfolio I was granted admission to read fine arts in the university. And of course, I did not disappoint them. I graduated with, I escaped a first class narrowly, which really hurt me, but I made a second class upper in sculpture, mosaic and wall decoration, and that's just it.
And art, fashion, sculpting, all those things, why do them all?
I believe that once you're an artist, you are an artist, you know? It doesn't matter whether painting, this. Once you're an artist, once you understand nature, once you are inspired by the things you see around you, once you see forms, which of course is one thing that really inspires me, forms and movements. Movements, forms created by sound, by movements, by all manner of things, you know. They just come together, to me, to form art. So I can express myself in any medium, in clothes, in sculpture, carving, wood carving, whatever, you know, in makeup, effect and film makeup. So I believe that it's all just the same.
So I guess you must have a very artistic soul to be able to do good in all these forms of art.
I don't know, because all the time I always think I'm not good enough. You know, I'm not good enough. So I just keep trying, you know. I never see myself as having arrived or being the best. But I know I love what I do. And I come from an artistic background also. My father is a civil engineer, my mother also a designer, you know, in her own time, you know, seamstresses and making clothes and all manner of things. So I never really see myself as having arrived. There's still a lot to do.
Yeah, I see. I see most of your artwork is religiously motivated or inspired, if I may say. What inspires that?
First and foremost, I believe very much in God. And I believe in the finished work on the cross of Calvary. So I'm inspired by crosses. I'm inspired by God's creation. Anywhere I go, I marvel at the work of God. The sound I hear, even at the sea, when you go to the seaside, when the sound you hear from birds singing around you when you wake up, everything put together makes me feel that, you know, somehow this person who has created all this must just be honored in my artworks.
Africa is a very artistic continent, and people travel from across the world to come here and buy our art. And most of the times they buy it, we sell it to them in a value that is not worth it. We find that we sell it cheaper than it deserves. Do you think we as Africans do not understand the power of art and the cost and the worth of art?
For me, I think the reverse is the case, because in Africa, art is a way of life. So we don't even see it as there are many great talented artists who rather give their artwork away because they believe it's priceless, that no amount of money can buy it. Even to me sometimes, you see me, I give away things to people Rather than pay me some kind of amount of money, I give it to somebody who will really value it. So I think Africa we are a nation of artists. There's artwork.
Amazing woman. That was internationally acclaimed artist Antonia Agetua. More than 30 years in the art industry, doing everything from sculpting, painting, costume designing, and also some humanitarian work across Africa. This brings us to the end of the show. Write to us on BizSense at ann7.com. Thanks for watching. I'll definitely see you tomorrow night. From me, Stevie B, good night.
BizSense was brought to you by Oakberry Resources and Energy.